Now, when you watch it, when you watch
my show,
when you watch my show, when you watch, like, for instance, when you do watch a comic talk for 40 minutes, twice, all different material both times. Can you shut off your therapist's brain, or
are you diagnosing?
Are you diagnosing while the
yeah.
joke is up going on?
Yeah, I take off my therapist hat all the time, and it's pretty funny. That's another reason why I don't lead with, I'm a hypnotherapist, because people will just start telling me their problems, and I'm like, I'm at a birthday party. Like,
right.
I don't. Yeah.
How did you meet this hypnotherapist?
They were on vacation at a comedy thing, and they told me I was funny a couple times.
Nice.
And then, so I ended up just having a conversation with them, and then they were like, "Hey, do you want to meet us down here? We're gonna watch Dune or whatever." And so I met them in, like, sort of the lobby bar thing.
Yeah, that's the natural progression. You think someone's funny, and then you watch Dune.
Yeah,
Then you watch Dune.
we ended up not watching a bit of Dune. We just sort of talked.
Yeah.
And then I talked to them like a couple times. Like, I had a quick short conversation, and then I was on my way to my cabin, and I was walking by one of those mini bowling alley type thing games.
Yeah.
And they were playing side by side right there, and then I'd already had a brief interaction with them, and I could tell, like, they're just cool, you know.
Yeah.
And
that's how you get on the show here. You just tell Tom he's funny.
yeah, and then they both rolled strikes as I was walking by, and I was like, "Oh, that was awesome!" I've never seen someone, two people roll strike at the same time, and then we ended up in a conversation, and then ended up at the hanging out, and we just hung out and talked, and I just the more I talked to them, the more I was like, these are really cool people, and
Look at you making friends.
yeah, I felt like I made friends, but
You're
they
good
were on
at this.
vacation, and I'm the comedian, so I don't know how that really will shake out. But they're a young couple. They were on their honeymoon. They have like a
Nice.
2-year-old, and then sort of at the end of hanging out and talking and having our different just conversations that we were generally having, felt like 2.5 hours into all the accumulated time, she said something about being a hypnotherapist, and I did my thing where I'm like, hypnotism, blah blah blah, and you know what I mean.
Yeah. Your ADD.
Yeah.
ADHD.
I don't even remember. It didn't become a lane that we went down in the conversation. How about that? And then, like, at some point, something came up that I referenced this. Like, I'm just trying to figure out how to shut up my mind and get my and stop my ego and help me sort of stay present.
Yeah.
It's like even in comedy or whatever too, and then she sort of when you're talking about it, it feels so kooky to talk about.
Yeah.
You know? So as I was starting to sort of stumble into it, she finished the sentence, and she was like, "Oh, do you read Eckhart Tolle?" She was like, I use that in my hypnotherapy. And I was like,
nice.
"What? That's a thing that, like, someone that treats people would use?" Like, it was super exciting to me, you know what I mean? Like, that it would be not mainstream enough, but it's just, we all like to have some of the stuff we believe confirmed by others, right?
Yeah,
That
of course.
that's not stupid to think that. Yes. Right? Thank you so much for doing this. I just filled out the form on here.
Okay.
So I don't know, some of the questions I answered a little smartass, but
That's perfect.
I don't really know what you can learn from it.
A lot.
Really?
Actually, it's better if you have kind of your own, method of answering the questions, because it really just shows me your personality, like what you are expecting out of it, how seriously you take it,
Yes.
that kind of stuff.
Yes. Now, I was trying to describe what hypnotherapy is, and I already described to Seth, like, how we met and what.
I'm Seth.
Yeah, that's Seth. He's my producer and co-host of this right now. You can't see him, I don't think, or
I
can
just
you?
showed me.
I can't see him.
I work in ways you don't understand, Tom.
Yeah, doesn't everybody? So I just did it like the form allowed with Seth as I did it, So I don't know. Anyway, I'm not very good at starting these, so we're just going to keep talking until we figure out like a way it falls together. Oh, so I was telling him about, like, when you first told me that you were a hypnotherapist. I didn't really connect with it, and I probably did like a hypnotism joke or something, you know. And then
Yeah.
my understanding is we talked through about how you're not doing that now, or because of TikTok, about, you know what I mean, and the fact that the insurances don't pay for hypnotherapists, right? Or they don't pay for any hypnotherapy unless you're accredited or you have a certain level of degree. Can you cover that? I'm stumbling through that.
So, no, I'm not currently actively taking clients. I am certified, so I could perform hypnotherapy. I just am a full-time program to become a clinical mental health therapist, so that I have those credentials, so that basically the medical industry takes me seriously. I could go on kind of an entrepreneurial route and do the social media and try to get my name out there, and kind of do the life coach thing where I'm basically taking clients under that umbrella term. But I didn't want to do that. I wanted to use it in a clinical setting. I wanted to be able to work in, the clinical kind of,
The
I don't know.
credibility of having that, right?
Yeah, exactly. So that clients can use their insurance if they want to. They would be seeing me more as like a mental therapist, where I would use hypnotherapy just kind of as one of the tools in my toolbox if a client was interested in that. And what I found too when I started to take clients is that a lot of them came to me interested in hypnotherapy and wanted to kind of explore that area, but then they actually valued just the one-on-one conversations we would be having beforehand and after and during, and they wanted more of that. And I can't legally say, I'll be your therapist and,
Oh
give
yeah.
you a credible, information or guidance or whatever.
So
So
what is
I want to,
hypnotherapy? Like
Yeah.
Tom got to meet you and talk about it a little beforehand. I have no idea what it is. So like what? Because when I hear it, I think of someone with a little pocket watch and whatever, and I'm sure you have to fight past those stereotypes. But what is hypnotherapy really exactly?
Wouldn't it be funny if she was like, I use a little watch and then I do that? Like,
Yeah.
it's not a stereotype.
look into my eyes.
Yeah.
No, no, totally. I tell people that all the time. I'm not a theatrical hypnotherapist, so I can't sit here and make you quack like a duck, or convince you that the room is really cold or whatever. That's not really my style. There's a lot of kind of avenues you can go down with hypnotherapy, but essentially what hypnotherapy is getting a person into a state consciously where their conscious mind kind of takes the back seat and their subconscious mind takes the driver's seat. And if you want to think about it in a scientific kind of way, what I'm talking about is those theta brainwaves. So what's crazy is people think that hypnotherapy is this really scary, creepy, unusual state of mind. It's not. People go into hypnosis every single day. So what I'm talking about is if you've ever been driving home and you show up in your driveway and you go, wow, I don't remember how I got here. Like I couldn't tell you,
Right.
or if you're so entwined into a movie, and you feel so a part of that movie that all of your surroundings and everything kind of dissipate and you're just so wrapped up in it, kind of that mind numbing watching TV state.
Yeah.
That's kind of a state of hypnosis. And what that means is that your brain is functioning in a theta brainwave kind of state of mind. And that's kind of that sweet spot in between consciousness and sleep. So a lot of people think hypnotherapy, which actually hypnos is Greek for sleep. It's not a state of sleep, right? You're not asleep. You're very aware of what's going on. You're just subconsciously aware.
It sounds like a meditative
So
state almost.
it is, yeah. So if you think about guided meditation, that is not hypnosis, right? So if you're listening to like a YouTube or, just going to a yoga class and they're telling you, okay, I want you to envision, you're in a field and this and that. That's guided meditation. But the difference between that and hypnosis is the suggestion part. So we kind of work with the mind in, whatever. I didn't get a chance to look at your form yet, but whatever your intention is, what you want to get out of it, that's what we would focus on. And we would use suggestibility to kind of convince your mind a different way of looking at things, or maybe a different way of kind of creating that those neural pathways. So somebody that's coming to me for a phobia, per se, so something like I'm afraid of dogs. Well, with their initial instinct, their initial trigger when they see an animal, a dog, is to become fearful or terrified, right? So we would work with those kind of neural pathways where we would kind of tell the brain, okay, instead of when I see a dog feeling fear, I'm going to feel this emotion
Mm.
instead,
Okay.
right? And we kind of just work with the brain in creating new pathways and new consciousness around a certain topic.
What's the success rate?
It depends. So I could, it depends on what somebody wants to come to me for. So it's kind of a hard question to answer. When
It's
it
like a
comes to
case by
smoking
case thing, I'm
cessation,
sure, right?
Yeah, I just,
exactly.
okay.
I would say for smoking cessation, like the number out there is 70% of people it'll work for. But you're talking about those that actually go through with the therapy, right? This doesn't just happen in one session. It can happen in one session for some people, but sometimes it takes 6, sometimes it takes a couple months. It just depends on how long that association has been there. And like I said, what you're coming to me for. So if this is something that's deep seated, like say a phobia that happened to you when you were a child,
Yeah.
that memory is insanely, you know, deep in your memories. So it might take some time to kind of pull that out and bring it to the surface so
Like
that we can address
repressed.
it.
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So like how do you get people in that state, like that theta state? It's like that makes their brain ready for that, like you can mold, not mold, but like kind of get in there and work. How do you get people in that state?
Good question. Dave.
It's called an induction. And it's really just about relaxation. It's getting the body to completely relax, which it would be shocking to you
It's
how
hard.
hard that is for
It
some
is hard.
people. Yeah. Yeah.
I try it, and it
Especially,
frustrates me that it's not easier because I feel like it should be. That's one of my frustrations, and we've talked about before over the year that it should be easier to settle into the now and shut your mind off, and to do things like love everybody. Like that should be the go-to easy, and it's not. It's hard. Why is it? And so is what you do to help make that less hard, or does it ever stop being hard?
it just depends. So, a question I get a lot is, can I be hypnotized? The answer is yes. Everyone has the ability to be hypnotized. It's really about your willingness to really commit and trust the process. If you sit there and you say, this is stupid, this isn't going to work on me, no, it's not going to work on you. You really have to be, willing to go into that state. And that releasing part, right? The ego is so strong sometimes where it's like, and it depends. It could be different things. It could be, I don't trust being in a room with somebody where I feel like I'm in a weird state. It could be, you just have a very active mind that won't shut off. That's a huge part of it. So I think hypnotherapy is really beneficial to somebody who does have difficulty with that. Because if I tell you to meditate, right, and I just say, sit in a room and just, don't think about anything, just let your mind not think about anything. Everyone's like, okay, how do I do that?
That's what I
it's
need.
hard.
That's what. Yeah.
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 So when you have something to listen to, when you have somebody to guide you through that process, it really makes it easier. And it's called an induction. So you can do that in there's limitless ways. So basically, your subconscious communicates in imagery. So I can't just talk to your mind. I have to have your mind visualize what I'm saying. And that's how it's really going to set in and your brain's going to be able to interpret it. And your brain also doesn't communicate in negative. So it's like the common saying, like if I tell you, do not think about a pink elephant. Well, what did you just think about?
A pink elephant.
Yes.
Right. So I can't talk to you in negatives either. So if I'm saying like, don't think, don't have thoughts, you're going to have thoughts. You're like, okay, don't have thoughts. Now you're thinking about not having thoughts, you know? So it's all about imagery and kind of bringing your mind into a state of imagination.
So what are those images? Is it like picture yourself not smoking, or picture yourself not being angry, or like?
Yeah, I think, a question that you asked that I don't think we still have an answer really is like what's the process? Do you just sit down and how do you talk? Like, how would you talk me into being under hypnosis? How would you do that?
So what we would do is, like I said, it's called an induction. So basically, it would be like guided meditation. So basically I'm like, okay, I want you to relax. And then I would start, you know, either from your head to your feet or to your feet to your head, just kind of going through your body, relaxing it. And you can do this in several ways. You can do it with imagery, you can do it with light, you can do it with water, you can do it with nature. And it's just about kind of getting your body or your mind into that almost dreamlike state, like when you're daydreaming. And I'm going to walk you through basically a story of imagery. And then I do the countdown, which is, you know, 5, I want you to take a deep breath. You're getting deeper and deeper. It's kind of hard to explain without just like doing it.
Okay.
Trying
I think I get it, right?
to
I think, yes.
explain it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you do it, and do those, how much easier is that in person than it is? Can you do it over can you do it Zoom-wise? Is that a thing that you could do, or is that
Yeah, I mean, it's better in person, of course. I think with Zoom, it's hard for me to see your reaction during the induction, which is beneficial for me because if I can tell you're still very much awake, you're tense, you're, you know, some signs that you are there, right? That you are in that kind of daydream-like state. Is your eyes will flutter, you might have like finger twitches, you are deep breathing with your diaphragm, not your chest. And I can kind of just tell when the body is completely like, your head will kind of cock back. It's just like the feeling that you feel right when you wake up and your brain is turned on and you know that you're waking up, but your body's still asleep.
right?
Does that make sense?
Yes, there was I was thinking about, you're making me think about, remember when Stuart was in here and he was talking about that scientist that figured out, he was either a scientist or a philosopher or something, but he would get realize that he got some of his best ideas in that time, right before sleep, when your mind shuts off, like all the stuff you're talking about. So he would tilt back in a chair and just sit there and think, and then he had like, what did he have in his hands? Paper clips or something?
Yeah.
Or marbles? And so
would he drop them?
Yeah, and then it would make him drop them, and then he'd sort of not fall asleep, and then be able to get back into that thing again until he dropped them again, and then that's where he would search for his ideas in that window that you're talking about.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So that's self-hypnosis. So that's completely, you know, obtainable too. If you really train yourself to self-hypnosis, you could do that.
But
that takes a lot of work.
I feel like self-hypnosis, how do you because my experience of hypnotism is like watching a comedy club where there's a hypnotist at the comedy club, gets a bunch of people up on stage, hypnotizes them, leads them in sort of an improv thing, and you can see people that are, and then they get rid of them. That's my experience with it. And they seem to have to be, at the end, released from it. So if I'm self-hypnotizing, could I get stuck there? Because I never was like, okay, 5, 4, 3, now you remember. You know what I mean? Like I'm never going to give myself that countdown.
No, you won't get stuck there. So probably worst case scenario, you would fall asleep.
Oh, okay.
You know, if you're stuck in that state. Yeah.
So at the end of the show, when he kind of does that, it brings them back. Is that just theatrics, and then they're like, oh, okay, or is he sort of waking them up out of that state?
Yeah, so with theatrical hypnosis, they'll do something similar to like, if I clap my hands, you know, you'll come to. And they'll usually pre-prep, you know, they're not patients, they're
Yes.
Audience members,
Victims.
I guess. Victims.
Yeah, victims. But they'll pre-prep that cue before he starts. And you asked me about this a little bit on the cruise too, how do they know? How do they get people? There are, like I said, cues that we look at. There's tests that you can do, suggestibility tests. So for me, when a new client comes to me, I give a suggestibility test because a lot of people are just worried that they're not hypnotizable, right? And it's really just about the willingness and the ability to just release and be
Right.
susceptible,
Like when you
right? So
said
we'll do
when you said to
suggestibility
start
tests.
breathing deeply, when you were just describing to Seth, I started sort of doing deep breaths and paying attention to
Yeah.
listening to your voice more, and then I've even since then I've been breathing a little differently.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
You do
So
seem more
I think
zen.
that's good.
Yeah. See, she uses words that to me jump out to me from my own whatever, my search spiritually,
Yeah.
all that kind of like the power of now and the.
Do you think you'd be easy to
So I hear
hypnotize,
those
Tom?
words and I'm like, oh, that sounds. It makes me feel less kooky, right? And makes me feel like oh, what I think might be real, and because that stuff is exciting to me.
Yeah.
That metaphysics and the connection that we have to this and that our minds are blocking it, like those.
If you could be
It
hypnotized.
all feels so stupid to say out loud, and then
Yeah.
there's like someone that is like, yeah, this is how your brain works, and blah blah blah, and I'm going to school for that. And I'm like, what? Like, I thought it was just me and 7 other kooks that are walking through self-help sections.
If you could be hypnotized, Tom,
We're
what would you try to get hypnotized to kind of benefit you? What would you try to do?
To always be paying attention to my breathing and to stop my mind from thinking about like useless stuff, the past, the future, like you know what I mean? Like that's to me that's to me what I'd want to do is not that I like my mind, and so that's weird because I like that I'm all over the place and it
Yeah.
helps me write jokes, and that's what brings me joy is creating that laughter, that spark in my head. So I don't really know what I would want, but I want to accomplish being able to sit with my mind shut off and meditate more and more, and to want to do it more, and for it to, even when I want to do it, I don't do it,
Yeah.
But so that's those kind of things, and to keep, figuring out the positivity of it, of life more. That's
Yeah.
what I would want to work towards. Yeah.
So
And
like
to
as
try to
a-
get rid of some of my own, like whatever those are that are destructive to my my defects of character, of whatever those are, like whatever they are, insecurity or anger or
Yeah.
that stuff. That's what I would use it for.
Yeah. So like as a hypnotherapist, how would you go about, what's the avenues you go down to go after that kind of stuff, I guess? I'm sure it's probably a case by case thing, but like what's the first steps, I guess, into going into that?
So what's really interesting is as you were talking, Tom, I was kind of reminded of a client who came to me for weight loss. She just wanted to work on her relationship with food and lose weight, which is very common for hypnotherapy. But what we discovered, like I said, it's multiple sessions, but as we were going through kind of the weight loss thing, what ended up really coming up for her was self-esteem issues and her past about her relationship with her family and the way that she was raised.
None of
And
that
so
interests me, by the way.
originally-
I know that's the core of therapy, but none of that is. I'm like, ugh, that just.
You don't want to go to your deeply rooted things.
I don't think I have that. I mean, I guess I do, but it's. How does that?
You
like
want the easy way.
yes. Again.
This
Why?
doesn't sound easy.
I know. Again, dealing with like none of that is real. Like it's the past is like all there. Like it's just here. So.
Well, of
You
course
should
it's
be able
real.
to skip all that and just get to being in the now.
Of course it's real.
Okay,
You're here now.
well, it's yeah. I mean, ideally that would be amazing if I was just like, oh, let's fix this, done. But there's blocks, and you don't know what those blocks are.
Okay.
And this is a really great way to expose those. And yeah, sometimes it can be a little bit uncomfortable when things come up. But if you want to get to that certain state, any state, whatever it is, a good relationship with food, you have to address what is, blocking that from being available to you.
Okay.
And if your mind is spinning, you know, there might be several reasons why that is. There might be all kinds of blocks. There might not just be one,
Right.
But afterward, after you remove those blocks, or at least even just become aware of them, you have to become aware of it before you can make it go away.
Right. There's so much stuff I just
can,
feel like I've learned in the last year and a half that I was like, I didn't even know that was a thing that you could work on. You know what I mean? Like, and so I'm excited by that in my own world. Like it didn't occur to me. Oh, I get angry for no reason. But it like inanimate objects or blah blah blah. And it didn't even occur. It's just like, that's who I am. Instead of being like, I wonder how I can not do that.
Yeah.
It seems so stupid, in my relationship with Serena. There's so much stuff that I was like, I could have done this instead of just continuing to do the same dumb thing,
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It feels like a little bit of an awakening for me to be like, I didn't even know that was a possibility.
So hypnotherapy sounds like a lot of habit stuff too, I guess. Would that be a fair assessment, I guess?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, it's not just habits like eating or smoking or anything. I mean, we have habits we have triggers
Thought
that
patterns.
we're not even aware of. Yeah. So, for example, with smokers, just since we're on the topic of habits, the process or the same routine that they do every day. When they get into their car, they put their purse here, they put their cell phone here, and then they put their vape here. That's a ritual habit. And they do it every day, subconsciously. They're not even aware how strategic and routine it is.
That's interesting because it's not just those. You've named 3 habits that the habit is where they put them. But it's like the coffee's a habit, the vape is a habit. What was the other thing? Their phone. We have all these little.
Yes.
Yeah. When you talk, you say so many things that I like. It's so. I meet very few people that are like that I meet, and you like the things you say. I'm like, I've thought that too. Like earlier when you started talking about ways we're hypnotized, I was thinking, I was thinking in my head, like television, because when you watch television, it's like it's as close to hypnosis as you get. Like that's what was going on in my head from a book I read 20 years ago. And then you're like television, and I'm like, So anyway, you just make me feel less
insane.
Less insane.
No, I know. When you start to be kind of forced to be aware of these things, you're like, oh, I do that. That is me, And like you were saying, you don't think that you have the ability to change these things. Like you said, that's just who I am. That's just what I do. But you do, because you do them. Your brain is telling you to do them for a reason, which means your brain can tell you to stop doing it for a reason.
Right.
Come on.
I feel like I'm a different person than I was 2 years ago, just from paying attention a little bit more. I'll still do the same things, but I'll recognize when I'm in it, like, okay, that's destructive, or it's not good. It's not what you want to. It's not who you want to be and who you are, And I'll change that pattern a little quicker, or a lot quicker than I would have ever before.
Nice.
So, in the Power of Now, which you just brought up, do you remember when Eckhart Tolle, he has you do this kind of experiment, and he makes you he has such a profound and amazing way. Sometimes I just read this one chapter when I feel like I am kind of losing that ability. But he talks to you on how to become the observer, kind of sit back in your brain and see through that lens, which I'm not doing a great job of describing, but I'm sure you know what I'm talking about.
Right.
To become an observer, where you feel like you're sitting back behind your brain.
Right. Watching your thoughts.
Sitting in that seat. Yes.
Yes.
It's super powerful. And he even says, in an ideal world, if you were able to do that 24/7, you would be in a state of nirvana, right?
Yes.
The Buddhist nirvana. Like you have reached enlightenment. It's not realistic to be able to sit in that seat 24/7 as humans with egos. Like it's just not. You have to be extremely powerful to do that.
That's
But
why only
even,
like 7 people have ever done it or whatever. It's probably
yeah,
more than that, but yes. Yeah.
but even the amount that you do it, Tom, like as you're talking, you're like, yeah, I'll just all of a sudden kind of have an epiphany or just like just become totally aware of, oh, this is what I'm doing right now. Why am I doing that? I would say probably, I mean, this isn't statistical, but I don't know, 80% of the population doesn't even have the ability to do that,
Mm.
you know,
Right.
even for a moment. They don't even know that that is an option. They're just in autopilot and they just go with the, routines of their life that they've always done. They don't question it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, it's like that specifically what you're saying, like, and about Eckhart saying that, like that's reassuring to me to read that, to be like, oh, it's okay. It's very rare to be able to do it. Like I'm like, why can't I do it all the time? It
Yeah.
should just be easier. That 15 minutes I just had was amazing. I should be able to do that
Right.
more. Like I should be able to do that at all
Right.
times. But then you're like, oh, okay, there's a reason why you can't. It's really hard.
It's probably like mentally draining too. Not draining, but it probably takes a lot of energy, I'd assume, right?
It it takes all your time.
Mm.
It, right? Because you have to do it. You have to. I imagine the more you do it, the more sort of automatic it becomes. Like,
Yeah.
but I think that too. Like with breathing, if you pay attention to how you breathe and you breathe correctly,
Mm.
your body doesn't automatically do it that way. Which is another. Why would you breathe and do it wrong? You're the thing. You know what I mean? So I imagine, in my head, the more you practice doing it, the more that then, after 10 years of doing it that way or whatever, then you'll start to notice, oh, now I mechanically breathe that way because
Yeah.
I've trained my
Got
mind and my
custom
muscle.
settings on. You used to be default factory settings, and now you got some little custom settings.
Yeah, it's
for
weird
you.
to me that our system would do it wrong. Like that makes no sense to me. Like, right?
Yeah.
Well,
Our operating system does it
breathing is-
wrong.
Well,
dumb.
breathing is voluntary, right? We
Mm.
we have the ability to voluntarily breathe how we want. If I told myself, okay, take deep breaths, yes, I have that ability. But breathing is also involuntary. Like when you think about the autonomic nervous system, the fight or flight response,
Right.
your breath is related to that. So if you're in danger and you need to haul ass away from, I don't know if I can, sorry,
No, you're
You
run
can
fine.
say
away from
whatever the
line
fuck you
or
want.
something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You can say
okay.
anything.
But you know what I mean? Like if a lion is chasing you, your body's like, freaking start hauling ass. Like you need to go. Well, you need oxygen to keep your blood flowing. It's a good response, right?
Right.
Breathing deeply in that sense or fast is helping you survive. So when we're in a constant state of our autonomic nervous system, being escalated, which means we're stressed,
Mm.
that's when we're breathing abnormally for no reason. You could be just sitting on a couch and you're like, because your brain is perceiving a stress that isn't really there,
Oh, yes.
which could be work, could be your kids, could be whatever it is. That's kind of, the epidemic that's happening in our culture right now is the stress epidemic.
Right. So hypnotherapy sounds like it can specifically help for that. It almost feels like a shortcut to using a lot of meditation and to, you know what I mean? It just seems like
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, is that a fair statement?
It is a fair statement. If that's your goal, absolutely. But like I said, so if your goal is, I just want to breathe better, I want to be more aware of my breath, I want to, use my diaphragm instead of my chest. So the difference in that is when you use your chest, that's kind of that stress breathing. If you're using your diaphragm, your body will naturally disengage and become calmer because you don't breathe with your diaphragm when you only breathe with your diaphragm when you're in resting state.
Just why doesn't
So when
involuntary breathing do that? If it's it's healthier for you, it's calming for you. It's like, it seems like they're fighting.
Because you have to be in a state of calmness,
Okay.
but maybe you're not calm even though you think you are.
Okay. So if we had a less stressful
there's
society
things
in
that
life,
might
would
come
we
up.
breathe that way more normally?
Yeah,
Huh.
naturally, sure. But there are people that genuinely don't know how to do that because they're surviving in a state of stress.
Right. Okay. Huh.
which is where other things come up. So if you tell me I want to focus on my breathing and learn how to breathe better, I can write you a script about, the breath and feeling it in your body and feeling that this is your resting state and things like that. But what might come up, there are some blocks.
Right.
What blocks you from doing that naturally?
Yeah, okay. I don't know. My mind, because then my mind's like, no, let's think about this. What about this? What about, Hey, Eric. Our buddy Eric just joined us. He's been trying to, they've been pretty boldly telling me I need to be doing therapy for about 1.5 years now.
I don't know if
That
you need it. I just think that, there'd be some benefit.
Right, okay.
You know?
That's fair.
Yeah.
As you learn more about the other side of therapy that's not hypnotism, do you envision your practice being different than what you envisioned maybe 5 years ago? You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I kind of thought hypnotherapy was going to be my bread and butter, which is why I went that route first.
Right.
Which actually is not the norm. Usually, you get your degree and then you get certified in hypnotherapy so you can kind of have that in your toolbox. But I wanted to be a hypnotherapist. But like I said, when I started taking clients and talking to them and things started coming up, like I was mentioning, someone comes to me for weight loss, but then a lot of other stuff comes up. And I kind of noticed, they do benefit from hypnotherapy, but they would also benefit from just traditional therapy.
Right, right.
Talk therapy.
When you said that,
and a large.
I'm sorry, when you said
Go
that
ahead.
you had wanted to be a hypnotherapist originally, what was it that pushed you towards that? What was the thing that grabbed you and made you want that specifically?
So I have my applied science degree in nursing. I decided I deeply loathe westernized medicine.
Yeah.
So then I actually got my degree in integrative healing arts, or practitioner's license. So that's like an umbrella term for just basically holistic health. So hypnotherapy was one thing that I got certified in, but I also have my practitioner's license in holistics. So this could include yoga. It can include life coaching type, things. It includes tapping, auriculotherapy, which is the meridians in your ear. So I did a bunch of kind of holistic classes, and I wanted to kind of go that route. And Tom and I kind of discussed this. It's very entrepreneurial, meaning like I'd have to start my own business. I'd have to start building my clientele. And it was just, I couldn't practice in a clinical setting. I wasn't recognized by the, health industry as
Right.
an actual certified therapist.
You weren't recognized
So-
by Western medicine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. You can't use your insurance to come see me, stuff like that. So if I get my degree and I become a licensed professional counselor, then I can use these same exact tools, but in a clinical setting, and
That's right.
basically just take more seriously.
Yeah, she told me too, she was like, and it takes a lot of, without that, it takes a lot of like being on Instagram and TikTok and
Yes.
becoming an influencer. And then, so she has that thing that I love that, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
That's chasing a thing, or I don't even know, like the same reasons we have for not liking it. Like
we're in a room full of that. Yeah.
Yes, the same reason we abhor it, you know what I mean? She has that too.
Can you tell me a little bit? You
Yeah.
had mentioned tapping. Can you tell me about tapping?
Sure.
Go ahead.
So tapping is hitting specific meridians.
What's a meridian?
A meridian is an energy source in your body. So if you think about acupuncture, right? They're putting needles into specific meridians. So, gosh, I wish I had like a diagram for you.
You just
guys.
explained it to me.
Your
I get
body-
it. I get it when you say the acupuncture, because
Yeah.
that's another thing that within my lifetime went from being like
Kooky.
kooky crap to like now there's been enough success in it over the time that people are like, yeah, that works.
The more we communicate,
Yeah.
right? Like the more we communicate over the last few decades, the more we're realizing how real all of these things are. And you can't, it's not one news source or one source saying that these things are kooky. It's people conversating with people And so these things become more widely accepted as we learn that they work.
And you get the actual science and the metadata
Yes.
that ends up proving these things are real, you know? Yes. Some of the classes that you said you took, I was like, that's even a class? Like, that's how old I am. Like, all the stuff that I was like, I've never heard of this ever. I've discovered things. And then they're like, nah, it's a class that you take.
You have to go to very special schools to go to these classes, but yes, they
Yeah.
exist.
They're next to like,
Yeah.
they're in a strip mall somewhere.
So
Well,
are you?
you're not going to find it at like, Arizona State University or something. But
Right.
if you go to the Southwest Institute of Healing Arts that specializes in holistic medicine, then yes, you can find those.
What's your
classes.
thoughts and feelings on, because maybe you already touched on this, but traditional therapy and regular therapy as it's going mainline therapy, I guess, is what I'm trying to get to. What are your thoughts on that? Is that just another piece of what you do, and integrating all of this other stuff into that? Or?
That's what she's working towards, I think, she said to us, is like
Gotcha.
it was doing this and then realized, oh, my clients are also need regular traditional therapy.
Yes.
And you're going to try to, in a way, blend those two into each other and get the best
Right.
benefits of both out of each of them. Is that sort of the goal?
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Yes.
really cool.
Yeah. So these are going to kind of just be tools in my toolbox where if, a certain person needs therapy and then I start to talk to them and I say, I think you could really benefit from hypnotherapy as well, then I have that tool
That's great.
to help them.
How excited
Yeah.
are you for to grow this and to be this? You know what I'm saying? Is it
Oh, I'm so
give you
excited.
hope and excitement, or are you like, I got 5 more years of school and then I got to, or are you just like, I can't wait to do this and help people? What's your happiness?
Oh yeah. No, I can't wait. Like I'm just very, very motivated, very excited. And it's a really cool time to be a part of this, kind of branch of therapy. Mental therapy has not been taken seriously for very long. Not really since the 60s and 70s. We kind of had that biomedical model in the health industry, and now we're kind of switching over to that biopsychosocial. So, originally, traditionally, physicians thought that the body was individualized, right? That your heart problems
humors.
were stemming from your heart. What's that? Sorry.
Oh, I was just saying the humors or whatever they used to think, like kind of
Oh,
like
yeah.
how you felt was based on like the things you had in your body, like if
The
you were
fluids
sad.
in your body.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. So actually, that was kind of more. That was kind of the beginning of the biopsychosocial model. So originally, like I said, like they used to think that if you had a heart problem, it was because of your heart. If you had breathing issues, it's because something was wrong with your lungs. Now we're learning that it's not that it's actually your brain and your body communicate back and forth constantly, right? And you could
Right.
have something going on in your mind that causes your heart problem, your heart condition, which is
Yes.
like mind-blowing, right? But now we understand that it isn't just individualized, right? That your body isn't just organs and tissues and things like that, that it's actually one entire unit, and it
It's a
communicates.
universe within
It's
you.
a universe, right? And it influences each other back and forth.
I love that.
Yeah, you look very excited about
Yeah.
I love hearing things I think from other people's, out of other people's mouths.
it. You like confirmation? Yeah.
Yes,
Exactly.
I do.
So when I heard that, I was like, yes, I mean, it's if you've ever read, like Vanderbilt's The Body Keeps the Score,
Mhm.
and it's
Yeah.
about a lot about like stress and PTSD and stuff. Like
Trauma, yeah.
you will show, trauma. You will show physical symptoms, right? And if I go to my physician and I say, I'm having trouble breathing, or I have a tremor in my hand, they're going to run tests on me. They're going to do labs. They're going to check my blood, when really it's all in here, right? And it's causing these physical symptoms. So we have to we really have to navigate our kind of medical field in that direction. And we're at the kind of forefront of that. We don't totally understand the relationship between the brain and the body. We're really just starting to.
Or how
And
consciousness works, which affects the brain, which then affects the body, right?
totally, yeah. You can develop ulcers because of the loss of a loved one. You know, we know that now.
Really?
We didn't know that before. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you look at the last, specifically the last decade, maybe the last 2 decades, and you think about the words that are pervasive in society, right? How often did you hear the word depressed when you were a kid? Depression, anxiety, things like that. Those are things that are being talked about much more openly now than they ever were before, right? And those are, I think, the more we talk about that, the more we get to this type of thing where it is like, oh, I am sick because of anxiety or trauma or whatever it is. You know, it's not just a physical reaction to things now. So it's
interesting because I bet you there's people that have, through their mindset and through some of what you're talking about how our mind is affecting our health, that when people sort of in the past have had that, it's a miracle, he's better. Well, that something happened in their mindset that then helped cure that within themselves. And so it wasn't a miracle. It was, we didn't understand how the mind and the body are related. But then that opens up the door to you being like, having that sort of, you're not healed, your dad died of cancer, well, he just didn't believe enough, you know, like
Right.
that. So there's that weird line there, you know. And we've in our lifetime, we've gone from, I mean, you're not as old as us, so, but in our lifetime, there's gone from you're in therapy to you're not in therapy.
Yeah,
like,
for sure.
Like you can't, it's something you can't talk about, to something like, holy shit, how are you not doing it like everybody else?
It goes back to the conversation we've had a few times where it's, you know, our grandfathers were never having this conversation.
Right.
You know what I mean? They never talked about their feelings. They just weren't fucking doing it. And, you know, and now it's every group of friends is having the, you know, most groups of friends are having these conversations. And I think that stuff's super important. The more we talk about it, the closer we are to figuring out how it works, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, how long have you been working towards the ultimate? So the ultimate goal is to go to school and do all of these things together. How long have you been in the field in general?
I just graduated and became certified in hypnotherapy in 2022. So very, very new. And I kind of made the decision very quickly to keep going with school. So I got my bachelor's degree in psychology from GCU, and now I'm doing my master's program. So I still have quite
Lot
some
to
time
go.
before I'll be. Yeah.
And you have a small child, right? Don't you have a is it a 1-year-old or a
I have a
2-year-old?
4-year-old.
Oh, 4-year-old, yes.
4, yeah.
Yes.
So
Staying
I take one
busy.
class at a time. I'm on the
Yeah.
flex.
How do you use, like, what's in your field? How do you use that? How does that come into play when raising a kid?
Yes.
Is that like, does that affect your
Oh.
parenting at all?
I imagine it.
Absolutely. So
Yes, go ahead. I'm just saying it affects every thought she has and how she lives her life, really. But yeah, I want to hear. That's a great question about parenting.
Yeah, 100%. There's actually, you know, a branch of hypnotherapy for child hypnosis. I have a friend who I went to school with, same program and everything. She specializes in children. So she was a dental assistant, and hypnotherapy is actually extremely popular in the dental field. People with fears of the dentist, things like that. There's actually some like you can Google this. There's mind-blowing feats that have happened in hypnotherapy. There is a story of a woman who was hemorrhaging after dental surgery, and that she had a hypnotist there, and she could stop her own bleeding.
Whoa.
Like, yeah, the
That's so
hypnotist
cool.
convinced her to be able to control her bleeding, and she stopped bleeding.
The mind is
So-
powerful, dude. Powerful.
Super.
There's people that have multiple personalities that have like different eye colors depending on their thing. You know what I mean? Or like, I read somewhere at this.
Your eyes would look like a strobe light.
they don't remember. Yeah, they don't remember. They don't remember the other personalities.
Yeah.
Some of them have different accents. Some of them speak a language that the other one doesn't speak. Like, the mind is just so amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you, with the thoughts around hypnosis over, forever, right? It's not really been lauded as this important or powerful tool or any of that. Do you run into that in daily life when you're talking to people and you tell people, when you meet somebody and you're like, hey, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I'm a hypnotherapist.
Yeah.
What are the reactions?
I actually told Tom that on the cruise ship. I don't lead with that.
Yeah. I don't lead with being a comedian either. It's I don't blame you.
I got to admit, I'm listening as you talk. I'm like, yeah, I'm in this. I have as far as hypnotist for therapy, I'm like, yeah. But I got to admit, there was a little part of me when you started talking about children. I was a little like, hypnotizing kids. I was a little twinge of cringe in it, and like worry about that instead of that's great for them. But even as a person that's open to it, I'm a little like, something about those things in combination.
Yeah, there's a stigma attached to it, right?
I don't know.
It's very, very different though with a child. So a child's attention span is not very long, right? You have hopefully 10 minutes where you can kind of engage with this child. I kind of got sidetracked, but my friend that works in the dental field with hypnotherapy, she had a child who was like deathly afraid of the dentist, like we all are. And like to the point where he was like kicking, screaming, like wouldn't lay there. So she worked with him, and it's a lot of, you have to communicate on their level, right? You have to use words that they understand. It's a lot of the parents in the room. It's a lot of toy play. They have their stuffed animals or whatever, their blanket that makes them feel comfortable.
Right.
And it takes a long time, right? You don't just go into the room, lay them down, and start saying things. You totally terrify them, right? You get to know the child.
Right.
You kind of hang out first. You don't just jump into it. You might have 3 or 4 or 5, 6 sessions with the kid, just playing in their room so that they trust you, and you kind of gain that rapport with them first. And then you can kind of start to slowly introduce the concept of hypnotherapy in a way that they understand.
Okay.
Is it easier or harder with kids? Because with adults, they have that life experience that you can kind of play with and use kind of as a tool. But with kids, it's like, I like macaroni. It's like, what are some of the avenues you go down with them? I mean, to work on some of that stuff.
In a lot of ways, if you've built that rapport and they trust you and they're willing to kind of go through the process, that's the hard part. Once hypnotherapy is kind of, accepted and they're into it, it's actually easier. So children are extremely imaginative, right? And like I said, the subconscious speaks in imagery. So telling them a story and that's what it is. We're telling your brain a story. And if you do it in a way that connects with them. So if this little boy tells me he's obsessed with dinosaurs, I'll probably write a script that involves dinosaurs.
Cool.
Right?
Right.
And he's going to be able to visualize that so much easier, and it's going to actually feel more real to him because they're so creative.
And they kind of have those tools the rest of their life. That's pretty cool.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
Like, is there a field in parenting like that it starts to incorporate some of this? I don't know why I'm saying it's a modern version of therapy into parenting, and in teaching, so that kids are raised to not face some of the problems of like our generation or whatever, that where it's like you have to go back and retrain your mind to think a different way. If we're sort of setting them up to have these tools as children and as young adults, the amount of change they can make in the world is going to be unfathomable if everybody's coming. They're not having to fix a bunch of shit.
Well, there's always going to be new problems, though, right? Like if you lighten one burden, then you're allowing space for other burdens. It's just always going to be things to deal with. But I guess that's where the choice comes in, right? Like if you are creating emotionally strong children, they're going to, hopefully their problems are, I would like to assume that my children are dealing with less severe issues. Their life isn't easy. I'm hoping that it's different than mine, and not the same problems, different problems. You know what I mean?
Right.
More manageable problems, I would imagine. Is that what you're saying? Like,
I don't even know. I'm assuming like you would like just when she started talking, I was like, there should be a parenting book that helps parents instead of like what to expect the first year or whatever. You can start to teach parents to incorporate that stuff into their parenting and how they deal with their children. Like for Owen, I read a book that was maybe different than what most people, the normal Dr. Spock book was at the time. You get to sort of the baby manual, basically, you know. And it was, so we did a lot of co-sleeping with him and having him not cry, and some of those things were the science that this guy was, the book I was reading was that will build self-confidence in them, you know what I mean, as opposed to like this, everybody thinks it's, no, they'll be really needy and blah, 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 or they're just crying because they want your attention, and it was the opposite of that. It was, no, they have needs, and they'll be stronger humans if you do that. And I've seen it reflect, you know, carrying it, wearing them in a sling or one of the Bjorns, like that was, not a lot of people were doing that before, and I see that people are more and more. But I can tell he's more confident in himself, and so that stuff has worked. So I imagine there's a lot of even that stuff that you would read as a parent and be like, no, this isn't what you've learned. And so you maybe take some of that and then incorporate your methods that you think are going to help your child the most, or help you and your husband be better parents for that, or however that is. And I don't know if there's even a parenting book like that, or a parenting style that's like, I don't even know if that's out there. So that's where I started thinking like, there should be a book on that, you know. Anyway.
I can put it on my desk and not read it.
Yeah. And I think you'd be amazed, like once your wife is pregnant in your life, and then you have this child, you realize, I don't know how this works. His poop is green. Is that normal? Right? I guess you have the internet. I had a book where I would go into the glossary and be like, what is the crime?
Green poop.
And
green
so
poop,
you'd get these answers that are like, you got to burp them. Oh, well, you know, whatever it is, you know. Yeah. And this has been covered. This is what you can expect in that first year. At 2 months, they're going to be doing this. At 8 months, they're going to be acting this way. These things are common. Like, and you don't know that until you have it.
Yeah.
And so to have those references were, you'll be surprised by how much you use them. So that was.
Did I just find out Seth's having a baby?
No, I am not.
No. I'm assuming he's a young man that just got married. Eventually they'll, you know, he just has this sort of.
Yeah.
Very prescriptive.
Quickly changing the subject.
Yeah.
So you mentioned you're not a big fan of Western medicine, and we're in Western medicine, I guess. What does the future look like? What does the ideal healthcare look like, medical, whatever? How does that look like when you incorporate some of the Eastern philosophies that you learn and everything? What does our healthcare system look like in your ideal world with both of those kind of ideas together?
You were worse at that than me.
I'm not talking about
I don't want to crap all over Westernized medicine. There is very much a time and a place for it. You know, if somebody suffers a heart attack and they need a defibrillator, right?
Yeah.
I can't hypnotize you, make your heart start beating. There are some benefits to Westernized medicine. The problem is, we really transitioned once the pharmaceutical industry, you know, took over, which, again, there's a time and place for that as well. We went from treating the cause to treating the symptoms. And I think that's the biggest problem. You know, I didn't want to be a professional pill pusher. And it really wasn't, we weren't solving any problems. We were just, oh, you're sad, here's a pill. Well, why are you sad? You know, I think we need to get curious again as to why or how these things are happening. You know, I actually just wrote a paper about this. You know, this is kind of off track, but do you know that it is not required for physicians, meaning doctors, specialists, anything, to take any sort of nutritional class?
That seems
not required.
nuts.
It's nuts. And that is just not part of their curriculum. And I wrote my paper on this because I said, you know, if you're deficient in zinc, you're going to display that in stomach issues, anger, hair loss, things like that. And if I went to my doctor and I said, I'm angry all the time, my stomach's messed up, my hair, I'm losing my hair, they're going to prescribe me medication for each one of those symptoms. Instead, if they were educated in nutrition, they'd say, well, you know what, you might be deficient in zinc. Why don't we check that out?
Don't talk to me
And
until
it
I've
would
had my
cure
zinc.
That seems like basics. Like that's the
Right.
basics. Like we know that what we put into our body affects our body. It should be there. They do push the diet and exercise thing, but they should have.
You ever
right.
had a fat, out of shape doctor
Yeah.
tell you that you need to exercise more?
Yeah, he's
fucking
He
hilarious.
smells
to
like
me.
cigarettes.
You know what I mean? Get out of here. It's like, oh, you gotta eat better, kid. Get the fuck out of here.
And what does that even mean? You got to eat better.
Right.
Well, what does that mean?
Yes.
I have
Yeah.
a sensitivity to eggs. If I didn't know that and I just went on a high protein diet and started eating a bunch of eggs, I'd feel terrible. I'd break out. You know what I mean? Like everybody's different on what works for them and what they need in their body.
How do you
Right.
We
figure
don't
that out?
focus on that.
How do you figure that out? How do you figure out what your diet should be? There's so much. There's so many places to find the wrong answers for that. I've never found the right
Sure.
answer. Like what you know what I mean? Like
would
I
start
think
with
about my.
deficiency. You can from blood tests determine, what your body is lacking.
Right.
That's a great place to start.
Yeah, I'm surprised they don't do more just like blood work, and then they're like, okay, here's what we need to do. Oh, like Serena has a raised cholesterol, and her doctor is just like, you got to get on this medicine. She's like, I'm not doing that. And my body doesn't react well to it, and her doctor is like,
Yeah.
you need to do it. You need to do it. And every time she's gone back, it's gotten a little lower, and then this time she just went, it was drastically lower, and her doctor has the whole time been like, basically shaming her into like, no, you need to be on this medicine. And she's
Yeah.
like, I think I can change my diet and the way I'm living and affect that. And her doctor's insistent that she not do it that way. And
Well,
then
that's because that's the only
she's
solution.
done it.
It's the only solution he has.
Yeah,
You know what I
she,
mean?
but yes, yeah.
Well, he or doctor or whatever you said. My bad.
There's actually I have kind of a perfect example of that kind of thing. Like I remember I had my side was really hurting for like years, and I was like, oh, something's wrong with me inside, and I went to doctors and they're like, ugh. And they're like, people were like, oh, you might have an enlarged prostate or blah 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 blah, and it's like I was a 24 at the time. I was a 24-year-old dude. There's no reason I should have an enlarged prostate. I'm not a trucker or anything like that. And then I went around, and then eventually someone was like, yeah, you're pretty stressed out, and you're clenching like your core and like your ass like all the time. Like you need to relax, dude, and like focus on breathing and do yoga and all this kind of stuff.
Really?
And and then I don't have that anymore. It's like because I'd sit and if I was standing right here 4 years from now or 4 years ago, I'd be like, wouldn't even notice how clenched I am. It's like I had no awareness. And then when I got that awareness, it's like, okay, I'm slouching or I'm doing this, and now I can focus on that and do breathing.
This is exactly what she's talking
I
about.
know. So yeah, perfect.
It is. So do you envision a time where a general practitioner starts there, and then medicine
Yeah.
goes the other way, like from the nutrition up and through some of the stuff that you've talked about and what Seth just said about like, hey, the first thing isn't, hey, have you focused on your breathing at all? I'm recommending that every night as you get ready to go to bed.
I mean, yeah, everybody would benefit, paying attention and controlling their breathing. That really is the key to addressing that stress response, right? You have control of that. So that's just one thing, right? But that's just knowledge. Hey, breathing's really good for
And
you,
then the
especially if you're
nutrition.
stressed. And then nutrition, yeah. I mean, this is really just about educating people and getting curious again about the causes. For example, this was recently discovered, recently in, I don't know, 20, 30 years, but your gut is like a second brain. There are just as many neural connections in your gut as there's billions of them as there are in your brain.
Wow.
So in addition, it's like 90% of your serotonin is created in the gut. Serotonin is directly related to, emotional disorders, that depression, anxiety, things like that. So if you have poor gut health and you're not secreting the serotonin, you could have depressive symptoms, and it's because of your gut health. We're just now realizing that. And we also know that messages don't just go from the brain to your body. They also go from your
Body
gut
to your brain.
to your. So when you talk about, for example, that gut feeling, right? You feel it here before you know it here.
Yes.
That's because that's that awareness of that second brain.
I love that. It's so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you say it, and I know it's true. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where when you hear it, you're like, I can feel it in my gut that that's true, right? Seriously.
Yeah. Yeah,
Now,
or
do you
get
envision
butterflies, right?
let's say, like, let's go 10 years from now, right? And you have a practice that you have, and and you're either have people working under you or with you. Is one of your core things you have a nutritionist that is working with people, like on their intake into your program, so to speak? Like, you're drawing the blood and meeting with nutritionists, and you're sort of working with them as the base of where you start. Will you have that in your practice?
Sure. I mean, have like kind of a network of, different specialties. Yeah, I could totally see that. I think everybody should have kind of their army of specialists in their life. Everybody should be seeing a nutritionist. Everybody should have a therapist. Everyone should, be addressing these problems, have a doctor. There's everybody has their specialty, but really, we all should know a little bit of all of it. Right? Everybody in the medical field should know a little bit of all of it, so
Right.
that you can have that awareness to say, you know what, this isn't my realm. I'm going to recommend you to this nutritionist, and they're going to help you out with this, or whatever, vice versa. Go do this and then come see me, type thing. But if I don't have that knowledge about those specific fields, I can't say that. I'm just going to do what I think's best for you and give you a pill or whatever I know how to do.
Huh. I'm very excited for you. This is, sounds like all this stuff sounds so cool to me, And
Yeah.
by the end of this, I've given you 5 jobs. You got to write a book on parenting. You got to open up your own place,
I'll get to work on it.
Yes.
When people are looking for therapists, do you have any advice on how to find because in my experience, finding therapists has been a nightmare. You find one who really works for you, and then, somebody moves or whatever it is. But you have to, in my experience, I've had to see 8 to find one. Is there any advice when you're looking to find someone who's the right match for you?
Actually, that is my advice. Interview, meet with several therapists, and most of them do free consultations, and most of them will do them over Zoom. Find somebody that really speaks to your heart. I think that's why a lot of people, there is this stigma around therapy, because they just don't have the right therapist. They go into therapy and they don't get anything out of it, and they're like, well, that was a waste of my time, right?
Right.
But also, you have to figure out what specialty you're looking for. You might be going to therapy for one thing, and like I said, something else comes up. And if they're not skilled in that, if they're not skilled in trauma per se, and your issues are actually trauma-based, they should be professional enough to say, hey, I'm going to refer you to another therapist because I think they're going to be able to do, X, Y, and Z better than me, or you'll get more benefit out of that. But I highly recommend that people really take their therapy seriously and find somebody that they connect with. I did that. I have a therapist. She's amazing. And it took me a long time to find her. And she did move and stop taking my insurance, but I worked it out with her, and we meet over Zoom now because I'm not trading
How
her for anything.
fantastic is the advent of all the, one of the great things that come out of the pandemic is the push towards telehealth and things like that. It's just, it really is a fucking game changer right now. Because
really
5
is.
years, this wasn't happening. So many,
Right.
your options are so broad now that you can just meet over Zoom or something like that. It's just fantastic that's
There's
what's
a
going
lot
on.
of people incapacitated
Absolutely.
in a way, Depressed people, they don't want to leave the house.
Oh,
They're not going to
tell me
leave the
about it.
house.
That's why I was late here.
We're actually really surprised he's here 2 days in a row. I don't know if I don't want to interrupt your but I don't know, like, I'm enjoyed meeting you on the cruise, and then like when you say have that connection with someone, like some of the ways you think and your ideas, it connects with me in a way that I don't have with most people, especially professionals. So I don't know. The more I talk to you and learn about this stuff, the more I'm like, this. I'm very resistant to therapy, but this, you make me be like, oh, she knows more than me. I like that.
Yeah. That's Tom's way of saying he
It's not as
appreciates
scary
it.
as people make it to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for doing this and taking the time out of your life to talk to me on
Oh
my
my
goofy
gosh.
little. They loved my show, man.
Yeah?
They thought I was funny. They
Everybody
came and saw,
why are
they
you
came and
saying
saw
it
me-
like I don't believe
They came
it,
and
Tom?
saw me twice. You know what I'm saying?
Why are you saying it like I don't believe it?
Front row.
I'm saying it like I don't believe it. You know
We're
what I mean?
here because I'm a fan of you, Tom.
Yeah.
Yes. Now, when you watch it, when you watch
My show,
when
how
you watch
am I-
my show, when you watch, like, for instance, when you do watch a comic talk for 40 minutes, twice, all different material both times. Can you shut off your therapist brain, or
Are you diagnosing?
Are you diagnosing while
Oh,
the
yeah.
joke is up going on?
Yeah, I take off my therapist hat all the time. And
Okay.
it's pretty funny. That's another reason why I don't lead with I'm a hypnotherapist, because people will just start telling me their problems, and I'm like, I'm at a birthday party. Like,
Right.
I don't want to, you know? Yeah.
I don't think I started telling her my problems until she brought up Power Now and she knew what I was talking about. Then I was like, okay, all this fun we've had so far is not about that. It's about this. This is why we're here. So anyway, I
No,
love
it's a
meeting
good
you guys.
thing. I like that people feel like they can open up, but it just goes to show you how much people really do need therapy and are just dying for someone to listen. You know?
Absolutely.
Yes. Well, thank you for listening to us today and coming on. I
Oh my
appreciate it.
gosh, thank you for having me. This is super fun. I don't get to talk about this and nerd out very often. So.
Oh, I love this kind of stuff because it's I'm the dumbest guy in the room, or the dumbest Tom in the room now is the name of the show. We're changing it, and so I love to be able to learn this stuff because it's fascinating to me. You know, so-
Absolutely.
So thanks.
Anytime.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good meeting you.
Nice. Yeah. Take care.
So nice to meet you guys.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for
We'll
coming
reach
on.
out when you're
Awesome.
ready for round 2.
Yes. For
I'll
sure.
have to have you on again for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Another thing I'm not good at, you can add to the list, is goodbyes.
Yeah.
And wrapping things up. So
Goodbye.
Bye.
bye.
See ya.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks.
Bye.